Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. This is Jeremiah chapter 9. And in this chapter, you're going to see a very key part where it says they don't triumph by truth, right? It's not by truth that they triumph in the land. Now, they're not actually triumphing, because if you don't triumph by truth, you don't triumph. I go over this all the time to make sure people get it, because there's a lot of knuckleheads, especially, who use military propaganda. I'm sure a lot of the military see through it, but they think that if you triumph, quote unquote triumph in the flesh, that you've truly triumphed. If you're not triumphing in truth and through truth and by truth, then you're not truly triumphing. Did Herod and Caiaphas and Pilate and Caesar triumph over Jesus? No. Did the Roman soldiers who were dumb enough to mock Jesus triumph over Jesus? No. Did they triumph over Stephen the martyr, John the Baptist, Isaiah, Zechariah son of Berechiah? No. Oh, that my head were a spring of water and my eyes a fountain of tears. I weep day and night for the slain of my people. Oh, that I had in the desert a lodging place for travelers, so that I might leave my people and go away from. For they are adulterers, a crowd of unfaithful people. They make ready their tongue like a bow to shoot lies. It is not by truth that they triumph in the land. They go from one sin to another. They do not acknowledge me, declares the Lord. Now keep in mind that one of the writers has a bow. And Judah has been described as a bow. I believe it's in Zechariah. And Ephraim has been described as the arrows. So there's these people who have the identity of being Jews, who are being, God has created the world in a way that if people sin, they're going to behave in a certain way. Like when a snake is acting up, it behaves in a certain way. When a dog is rabid, it behaves in a certain way. And this is why the people who made the wordplay, not just to insult black people out of jealousy, right? Talmud, okay? And Yamaka, Yamika, right? It's a variation of my name, Yameka, right? Amika, that's also how people say it. So that's the Yamaka, right? It's made to take a shot at me, just like Talmud, right? Tall, dumb, Talmud. It's a play on words for that. But also the word rabbi is like the word rabid, because the occultists, they'll make fun of themselves at times, and they're not just Jews, not just gays. They're gays, they're straight, they're Jews, like they're different types of people, right? And so they'll make fun of themselves, and they'll make fun of other people, and they'll explain it in a certain way that's like a psycho circus, where the clown, in a sense, is making fun of himself, but he's also getting at other people, like a psycho clown. Okay. So again, they make ready their tongue like a bow. Their actions are like a bow. They shoot lies. It is not by truth that they triumph in the land. They go from one sin to another. They do not acknowledge me, declares the Lord. The four horsemen of the apocalypse, the bow, okay, the rider on a white horse who rides out to conquer society. They're conquered because they live lies, because they're not men. Their marriages are not valid. They're a lie. Their manhood's not valid. It's a lie. Their nations are not valid. Their churches, their mosques, their synagogues. So they're conquered. If you want to debate me about this, put in the comments. I'd love to debate people about this. I know I'm right. I know there are people who have a bunch of false pride, who want to pretend that I'm wrong, and I'd love to debate them. Okay. Beware of your friends. Do not trust anyone in your clan, for every one of them is a deceiver. Again, it says a deceiver. In the footnotes or what have you, it said, or a deceiving Jacob. Right? Think Jacob and Esau. How Jacob tricked Esau, and it wasn't the right thing to do. And he was punished for it to some degree. But he wasn't punished for it completely. How he was punished for it completely is the Jews have the kingdom of heaven taken away from him. God decides to use him as a tool to test the world and his offspring. Proverbs 17, right? Galatians 3:28, Galatians 4. That the physical Jews are not representing the idea. The idea in its pure form that was illustrated in some of the Jews in the story, in its pure, potent form that goes beyond any Jew, is the idea of the way, the truth, and the light, and the life, and the gate. Where Christ wasn't the son of a Jewish male, he was the son of God. And God is more accurately embodied in the black man, because Ham begot Cush, Cush begot Nimrod, Nimrod was a mighty warrior before the Lord. He was a mightier warrior than David. He's a mightier warrior than Benaiah. And that's what it was getting at. That's when you look at the story and you look at it carefully and you break it down and you analyze it and you're fair and you remove all ulterior motives from your heart. I used to pray, and I used to put my hand on my heart, and I used to pray to God, and I used to say, remove all ulterior motives from my heart, to overkill that. When you look at it with purity, then you see that that is the case. So it says, don't trust anyone, right? Everyone's a deceiver, right? Do not love your people and your family more than God, because they're deceiving you, and it's going to cost you your soul, and it's part of the test. Friend deceives friend, and no one speaks the truth. They have taught their tongues to lie. They weary themselves with sinning. You live in the midst of deception. In their deceit, they refuse to acknowledge me, declares the Lord. So who is he talking about here? First and foremost, he's talking about the Jews. And he's saying that they're going to spread lies around the world with the Gentiles, like everyone and their mom. Because as they spread the gospel and people respond in different ways, some respond, very few people respond on the narrow path and they find the way to life. The vast majority of the people joined the Jews who rebelled against Jeremiah. They rebelled against Isaiah. They rebelled against God, and they joined them on the broad path to destruction, and their lives are a lie. Their advice is a lie. Even the word advice is a play on words for advice, because they're doing the wrong thing to such a degree. Okay. No offense to anybody. I'm sure we can all agree that it's fair for me to say that, and it's the truth, and if it's the truth, it's fair. So no offense other than the offense that God intended. Okay. You live in the midst of deception and deceit. They refuse to acknowledge me, declares the Lord. So, therefore, this is what the Lord Almighty says. See, I'll refine and test them, for what else can I do because of the sin of my people? Their tongue is a deadly arrow. It speaks deceitfully. With their mouths, they all speak cordially with their neighbors, but in their hearts they set up traps for them. Should I not punish them for this, declares the Lord? Should I not avenge myself on such a nation as this? I will weep and wail for the mountains and take up a lament concerning the wilderness grasslands. They are desolate and untraveled, and the lowing of cattle is not heard. The birds have all fled and the animals are gone. I will make Jerusalem a heap of ruins, a haunt of jackals, and I will lay waste the towns of Judah so no one can live there. For those of you who need proof that Horus is in the Bible, okay? We see in Job, it says the hawk spreads his wings by the wisdom of God. And wisdom is the opposite of folly in Proverbs, like Proverbs 9. Proverbs is very much about wisdom, and it talks about how it's a book to understand the other books of the Bible. And here we see when God punishes Jerusalem, Israel, what have you, he makes it a haunt of jackals, which goes back to the spirit of a jackal, right? The idea of the spirit of a jackal, which is what the Egyptians were saying. They were saying that something about a jackal, its scatterbrained nature, how it doesn't take things seriously, the way it's kind of wimpy and it refuses to man up, okay, is something that accompanies evil. Those people can be focused like Hitler was and be evil. But there's something about a falcon specifically as it flies close to the sun, because there was other falcon deities as well, specifically about, and there's false forms of horse, that makes it righteous, that it connects to righteousness. So they said the falcon and the sun are the symbol of God and Pharaoh, who's supposed to be the son of God, but more often than not in Egyptian history, at least dynastic Egyptian history, they were bad guys. Who is wise enough to understand this? Who has been instructed by the Lord and can explain it? Why has the land been ruined and laid waste like a desert so no one can cross? The Lord said, it is because they have forsaken my law, which I set before them. They have not obeyed me or followed my law. Now the problem isn't that they didn't obey the details of the law, but at that time, according to the story, that too. The problem is they didn't obey the essence of the law, the heart of the law, the king of the law, God and the Son of God. Instead, they have followed the stubbornness of their hearts. They have followed the Baals as their ancestors taught them. Therefore, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. See, I will make the people eat bitter food and drink poisoned water. I will scatter them among the nations that neither they nor their ancestors have known. And I will pursue them with a sword until I have made an end of them. So here he says, until I have made an end of them. So he's going to transform the earth into hell, and it's going to take the righteous away, and it's going to make an end of the Jew and the Gentile alike on the planet, because again, Babylon's system is something that infected Israel, right, and got them to rebel against the prophets, and it infected the whole world. And so the whole world becomes like the rebellious Jews, and the righteous are taken away, like it says in Isaiah 57. This is what the Lord Almighty says: consider now for the wailing women to come, send for the most skillful of them, let them come quickly and wail over us till our eyes overflow with tears and water streams from our eyelids. The sound of wailing is heard from Zion. How ruined we are, how great is our shame. We must leave our land because our houses are in ruins. Now you women hear the word of the Lord. Open your ears to the words of the mouth. Teach your neighbors how to wail. Teach one another a lament. Death has climbed in through our windows and has entered our fortresses. So it says death has climbed in through our windows and has entered our fortresses, right? Their houses, their temples, their families, their little houses, their bodies, their groupings, right? Like the house of David, it's a grouping of people. And the root and offspring of David include those who become one with the Messiah and therefore become one with God. It has removed the children from the streets and the young men from the public squares, right? It keeps them from reproducing people with valid souls who are going to heaven. Instead, it's rotten souls that will burn in hell forever according to their deeds. What have you? This is what the Lord declares: dead bodies will lie like dung on the open field, like cut grain behind the reaper with no one to gather them. This is what the Lord says: let not the wise boast of their wisdom, or the strong boast of their strength, or the rich boast of their riches. But let the one who boasts boast about this, that they have the understanding to know me, that I am the Lord who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these I delight, declares the Lord. So that they have the knowledge, right? They have the wisdom, the understanding to know God. Okay, some garbage truck driving by here. A bunch of noisy vehicles. Give me a second here. Okay, so that they have the understanding to know God. Say, let Horus boast that he spreads his wings by the wisdom of God. Now the word Horus isn't being used, but the hawk is being used. And there's a debate but whether or not Horus is symbolized by a hawk or a falcon. And I chose a falcon over time. Initially I said it was the hawk, and over time I changed my mind to the falcon. It doesn't really matter because it's just it's a bird of prey that's a symbol. It's a very interesting bird. The falcon dives at 242 miles an hour. So faster and master. So the falcon is a symbol of being the top martial artist. And the hawk, one could argue, is more like you might say like a communist symbol or something, in a sense that it seems like a more common thing to be a bird of prey that isn't so fast. But the faster is the master, right? God's speed, light speed, fasting. On the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will punish all who are circumcised only in the flesh. Egypt, Judah, Edom, Ammon, Moab, and all who live in the wilderness in distant places. So he says he's going to punish all these groups, right? And these groups basically spread around the world. You know, people mix together. There's colonialism, right? It's white, Jew, LGBT, and the Jews of old, they mixed, as they did their idolatry, they mixed with these other groups. The problem isn't that they mixed with these other groups. The problem is that they mixed with their cultures together. And they learned their tricks for ripping people off, right? Baal is a deity of merchants and pirates and rape by deception, etc. And darkness and evil. So as they mixed in that way and they went around the world, it overkilled that Edom, Ammon, Moab, right? Cush, Egypt, Judah, Israel, on and on, became the world. They mixed with the world. They became the spirits of the world, the spirits of the nations of the world, the ways and paths of the world. So when God is saying that he's going to punish these groups, he's going to make an end to them with the sword. Okay, he's talking about the world. And Edom and Moab and so on and so forth, they were affected by Babylon. Babylon was an empire. These are like regions. Babylon spread all the way to Egypt, all the way to northern Egypt at one point. And Egypt spread all the way to Babylon at one point. So these people are Babylonians in their own right. Moab, in a sense, is Babylon, and Babylon is Moab. Chaldea is Babylon, and Babylon is Chaldea.